and McCann.
Somebody asked me in an email if I could maybe do some solutions type show. And I'm thinking, well, the first person I thought of is you. I mean, you really are an inspiration. And I'm so happy that you agreed to be here with us today.
Thank you. Yeah,
Wonderful.
we had good conversations.
That's
Tell me
wonderful.
again, what is it that you're thinking of?
Well, non-corporeal entities uh, like maybe not just spirits, but think like influences that on people's minds and how and
Like frequencies and energy and vibrations and those things.
yeah, yeah, but I mean kind of how so like people like schizophrenics hear voices
Uh,
and dark occultists do ritual and they talk to entities and um people well, I guess, and people are possessed, some people, by other forces. If the natives have experienced this and like your culture has such connection with ancestors and with the souls and the energies of your family's dead. I wonder when you commune with them, is there other forces trying to influence and get in the way? And is there like are the natives have they been plagued by demonic forces? If so, how do they deal with it? How do they keep their ceremonies clean? How do they maintain sovereignty over their own minds? And is it just I mean, is it just as easy as resonating in love and care, and somehow that wards off the evil? That's kind of the idea where I wanted to go with it.
we cater to the idea that all of this illusion that we live in is a sequence of vibrations, frequencies, and energy.
Right.
Like sound actually has shape. You can actually see sound and you can hear color, these kinds of things. And so the intention around language. See, one of the things to remember, I believe this is important, is that we only see 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum of light, the optical range. We only hear 1% of the acoustic range. Birds can hear things we can't hear. Dogs can hear a mouse fart 5 miles away. We can't hear
Yeah.
these things.
Birds
And
can
so,
actually see colors that we can't. They have some of them have iridescent feathers that the way that it reflects light out, it makes more colors than the red, blue, green that we can see. Some birds see
right.
beyond that. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. That's
Anyway,
right. And the other thing is that we don't see the world the way it is. We see the world the way we are. And so, because it's all an illusion, right?
Hmm.
So sometimes people's eyes are faulty and they don't, I mean, you can be standing together with someone and both of you cannot see the same rainbow because you're
Right.
at different angles and those light rays come in at different fractiles, different fractions. And so we don't see, I mean, we see some things in common,
Hmm.
but other things, the actual interpretation is uniquely ours. I
That's
mean, the
true.
colonizers can look at a tree and see board feet of lumber.
Right.
We look at a tree and see a living sentient being.
Right.
Two entirely different objectives, to perceptions, and neither one of them are wrong. They're just incredibly different attitudes about the relationship with life itself. If you see life as being something you can exploit, see, that's where we are now. Right
Right.
now, with the colonizing perception, we are destroying the life that gives us life. Corporate farming, we've lost so much topsoil. 70% of the world right now is in a drought. The other 30% is flooded. We have a huge problem right now with balance and harmony. And see, once upon a time, humans were the immune system of the mother. This whole
Right.
place is alive. See, people forget that. This whole place is alive. It's a sentient being. She has a heartbeat. She breathes. She lives. She's constantly giving birth. We're literally walking through creation. And so, if you honor that, there's nothing horrible you can say about it. If you're standing in a
I
room with
see.
a woman you love more than anything and she's about to give birth, that's not when you start criticizing her and judging her. At that point, you want to participate, you want to contribute. This is a momentous occasion. The
Right.
girl you love is fixing to give birth.
Mm.
And so the girl you love is Mother Earth, and she's always giving birth. So the idea to relate to that and to have conversations around that are critical. That they stay positive and
Mm.
contributory, and you know what I mean. You want to help the situation. You walk a little softer. You talk a little softer. You don't say mean and nasty, judgmental, critical things at that point. You say loving things. You say compassionate things. And
Right.
so that's the motivation and inspiration for the conversation. See, in our language, we don't have words. We don't have nefarious words. We can't say lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, plot, scheme. We can't say these things. They don't exist. Imagine once upon a time when the southeastern United States was called Wale. Wale means a little piece of heaven. 5 million people waking up every day, and the only language they know tells them they're waking up in a little piece of heaven. They don't know any other way to talk about it. They don't know any other way to express it. That's the language. Where are you? I'm in a little piece of heaven. Who are these people? These people are all my relations. This is my brother. This is my uncle. This is my aunt. This is my grand. These are my tree people relatives. These are my stone people relatives. There's no room in this conversation for negativity and for horrible things because the conversation is oriented around
Right.
relationships. It's not oriented around survival. See, English is oriented around survival, and you've already lost. The two things that we all have in common is we all came, 8.1 billion people on this planet, all came from a mother. We all have a
So far.
woman to be in here. I
Yeah, yeah.
think women are not honored
That's
the way
true.
they should be as the mothers of our population. And the other thing we share in common is we're all have an expiration date. We came from the same place and we're all going to die. We're all going to the same place. So there's this little trip in between the cradle and the grave where we can do something if we want
Right.
to. And once upon a time, what we did, we were shepherds and stewards and caregivers. We took care of the place. That's what Mother created us for, as her immune system. If your immune system goes south and starts attacking itself, we say that you have an autoimmune deficiency. So then you're susceptible to all the problems that happen when your immune system fails. Well, mother's immune system has failed because we're attacking each other, just like cells in the body. We're
Right.
the same family. We're all humans. We're all bipeds. And we're attacking each other as if we're foreign, as if we don't recognize this free radical that just showed up. You know what I mean? So we've lost our sense of compassion and empathy. And we've lost actually what I consider to be the truth. We're all human beings. And the ideologies that we've created around Republicans and Democrats and Christians and Muslims and you name it, the list is a mile long of ideologies that we created until we become delusional. And we actually believe we're Americans and those people are Africans and these people are, you know what I mean,
Oh
Chinese.
yeah, I know
We
what you
come
mean.
up with all these names that separate us when in fact we are the people of Earth,
Right.
and that's the truth. And so that's what's missing right now.
Mm,
So what we're dealing with, and when you talk about these things, what we're dealing with are these incredible ideology delusions.
right. So we really, I guess, if your people don't have the language for that kind of negativity, and you don't focus on, I mean, I guess if psychopaths didn't rise to the top of your culture, then really you'd be focusing on a more positive. Like there is a difference between humans, us, you and I, and psychopaths. These people that are running things, that are currently in charge of the Kali Yuga or whatever, they're, I mean, the ones running the corporations, the ones running the finance illusion, the ones running the government illusion, all of these um, mind slavery devices. Those, I mean, those people, they don't think like humans. They don't have compassion. They don't think like, well, I need to take care of a mother while she's in birth. Like they think, oh, now's the time when she's weak and I can get her, and attack. Like they focus on decay and immorality and how do they bring humanity down. I know like it's kind of negative stuff, but really those people are in, like they're in charge, apparently, according to the illusion that we all, that not we, but a lot of people agree with, is that the government is my boss and I'm a slave to that and I have to do what they say and all that. Uh, the people in charge of the government, they do ceremonies and they speak with energies, ideas, maybe. I don't know. They have like a anti-human worldview, and it's um, they are plaguing humanity, and they are giving us the illusion that we need to pollute the earth to survive, or we need to be slaves for $1, or you know, all the different things that go along with our mental slavery. Uh, yeah, I guess that's kind of
But I can
bringing it.
tell you a story that I feel is related to what you're talking about.
Good,
Once upon
thank
a
you.
time, I used to get on soapboxes, so to speak, and talk about Monsanto and Agent Orange and cancer and cancer causing products like Roundup and I mean, years ago, I mean, that's all I talked about. And then one day I realized I was educating people on these horrible things. And so we already know those things are horrible. I mean, so what I started talking about was heirloom varieties of native plants. I started talking about butterflies and hummingbirds and ultraviolet rays and all these other things to educate people on the other side of the coin. And so, because the dream is not associated with these psychopaths, and sociopaths because they are the problem. If you look at it like that, then
Right,
what
right.
you see, listen,
That's
talk
the
about this
autoimmune
idea of
problem,
frequency.
the free radical you spoke about earlier. Like, well, please go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was talking to some friends of mine who are scientists, robotic engineers, and such, and they use frequencies and energy and those kinds of things uh, in their work. They measure the frequencies, the dynamics, the energy, and the frequencies of various things. And so I said, "Have you measured the frequency of when we were going?" This conversation happened at the beginning of COVID, And so they said they had measured the frequency of COVID and it was below 25. They said they measured the frequency of bacteria, parasites, viruses, and fungi, and it was below 25. I don't mean fungus in general, like reishi or shiitakes. I'm talking about black, the mold. And so I said, "Well, can you measure the frequency of emotions, people's emotions?" And they said, "Well, yeah, we've measured those a long time ago." I said, "Well, what are they?" And they said, "Well, it's interesting that you asked, Tom, because they said the frequency of anger and rage and greed and fear are all below 25. So the frequencies of these negative, what we consider negative emotions, are the same frequency range as these infections. So you have a harmonic convergence. It's like if all the musicians have their instruments tuned into the key of G, no matter what they do, they're going to be in harmony because they're playing in the same musical frame. It's the same with that frequency. And I said, "Well, have you measured the frequency of such as things as love and care and compassion?" They said, "Well, yeah." They said compassion is above 300, love is above 500, enlightenment is off the charts. So I'm thinking that if we stay in that place of love and forgiveness and mercy and respect and dignity, we're out of range of the frequencies of fear and anger and greed and all these other infectious diseases, because we're thinking, and we have for a long time, that if you're greedy, if you're mean and nasty, and if you're like antagonistic, if you're the opposite of compassion, if you're selfish and one way, that you're ill, something has happened to your spirit, and that you've lost your humanity. And so then we bring them back. See, one of the things we did to try to curb that situation is to, when babies are born, give them a song. And the song keeps them in harmonic convergence with the village, with the people. So if they ever kind of like start giving you indications that they're moving away from these humanistic characteristics, we sing their song to them. And that harmonic convergence brings them back into the fold, where they also, like the Zulu call it Ubuntu. It's like, for instance, this anthropologist did a study, and he took a bunch of fruit and candy and he put it under a tree, and he took all these little Zulu children, all around 7, 8, 9 years old, about 15 of them, and he told them, he said, "The first one to that tree gets all the candy. Go ahead, 1, 2, 3, go." Well, he was surprised that they didn't burst into a trot right away. They all held hands and walked to the tree together and shared the fruit and shared the candy. So that was, even though he had set it up that one of them could have it all, they went beyond that and kept their own ideology, which was they are better together. So they stay together. So that tribes and indigenous people are like that. They share, what one has, they all have. Everybody has a warm bed to sleep in. Everybody has a blanket. Everybody has their own pony. You know what I mean? Nobody is without. And no, and so the people who lead are chosen because they care more about the people than they do what we now call profit. So if you care more about the people than you do the riches, the treasures, that's who's in charge. The person who is the most compassionate, the person who is the most forgiving, the most loving, the kindest person. These are the ones who get to lead the people. So you have people like Sun Bear and people like Red Cloud and people like, Black Elk and Tecumseh and all of these wonderful leaders once upon a time. Even Geronimo, that fellow, had these traits, these characteristics of humanity. And that was one of the reasons that the colonists didn't couldn't handle them, because they were the opposite. See, the
Right.
colonizing is like this place where you see mother as a resource. You come into the United States and it's just filled with resources. How much money can we take from this? Sell all the trees, kill all the animals and sell their pelts, pick all the herbs and sell them to homeopathic remedies in Europe. It's just like, how much is this worth? How much is money, 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 greed, greed, greed,
Yeah.
And so, but we weren't like that at all. We said, how can you sell the land? How can you sell the water? How could nobody owns that. It's for all of us to share. And so that's still an issue today, even though, uh, and I'm going to say even though, and I'm going to footnote, 90% of the people right now live on 10% of the land. And I'm being generous.
Right.
It's more like 94% of the people live on about 8% of the land in the world. So cities are all on life support. They don't build a city where the food grows. We have to bring in the food. We have to clean them up. We have to take care of everybody. And then we have to go in there and haul all the trash away. And you got Peking, Beijing, Paris, Rome, New York, Chicago, thousands and thousands of cities with millions and millions of people that the 10% of the people that live on 90% of the land is having to take care of. So it's like
Right.
all these farmers are like medics in a battlefield. You know what I mean? Trying to keep these cities alive. And the cities are like tumors, they're infected. The problems are in the cities. Rarely do you go to a farmer and find an issue,
Right.
with the things we're talking about. Psychopathic farmers, I don't think so. Sociopathic farmers, I don't think so. You know what I
Well, they're
mean? Farmers
trying
are
with
the
all the
people that feed
Roundup.
us all. And
Yeah.
so, and they're getting fewer and fewer because corporations saw the profit in money. And that's why we've lost the topsoil, because they keep on farming. They don't regenerate. I mean, regenerative agriculture is starting to come back, but not near enough, and it's not fast enough.
Right.
So now we're trying to find ways to bring our topsoil back. So you've got all of these issues going on, and still the people you're talking about talk about growth as if that was something we have. We're definitely a finite planet. We're not supposed to grow. We're supposed to thrive. Thriving is a very different concept than unbridled growth,
Right.
because what happens, that growth translates into destruction. There's more plastic in the Pacific Ocean now than there are fish. You know what I mean? We have a huge issue right now on this planet, and people are just running as fast as they can towards the cliff.
Right.
uh, George Carlin said we're circling the drain. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's
He was
not
a
much
prophet.
time
He was a
left.
true prophet of our time, George Carlin. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we
Yeah.
need to do is, in our world, is bring ceremonies and rituals and rites of passage back to the people, so that for a few minutes we can walk in a place and talk in a place that gives life support. Talk
Right.
about honoring the women and respecting the men and helping the children. Children are the future. We need to focus on the children. I was in Kenya not long ago, and working with the Maasai people, beautiful tribe. And the medicine man, the Sangoma of that tribe, came over to meet me, and I was going to meet him. And we had set up this meeting. And the first thing he asked me in his language uh, was, and I didn't know, he spoke in Maasai, and so I had an interpreter. So I asked my interpreter, I said, "What did he just say?" And the interpreter said, "He asked you how the children are." I said, that was his first question to me. I said, boy, that touched my heart so deeply. And then he said, well, not only that, Tom, but he also said, whatever you told him would tell him everything he needed to know about you and your culture, is how you treat the children. And I thought, where are these people in the United States? Where are the people in our country that are concerned about our children,
Right.
concerned about the future? It seems like everybody in this country is concerned about money. It's concerned about buying things,
Right.
concerned about profit, concerned about, who has the
Children are
biggest car,
burning
who has the
alive.
biggest yacht, who has the most houses, who has the
Right.
biggest bank account. And those things are all horrible destinies, and if you don't change direction, you're going to get where you're going.
Right.
It's kind of like doing
Look
the
at
same old thing and expecting different results. It ain't going to happen. The
look at
only
what
way we can do
mm,
it, we have to come up with, you see, you can't solve problems with the same thinking that created the problems.
mm,
And so, to me, and to the people that I've spoken with, the indigenous people, the only solution is to become human as soon as possible. Just become a human. Forget about the ideologies. Forget about being a Christian. Forget about being a member of the Nation of Islam. Forget about being a Republican or a Democrat. Forget about those ideologies. They're delusional.
right.
Remember that first and foremost, we are a part of a family of man. We're a species and we're killing ourselves. It's ridiculous that we would end the world from from the standpoint of just being stupid.
Man, I mean, like, there's children burning alive in Rafah. Like, I
Yeah.
saw it on Twitter. Like, in the old days, they'd be like, beware, don't let your children look, like this is some harsh material or whatever. And now I'm scrolling through and like, boom, there's like charred bodies they're pulling out of fire. I mean,
It's horrible as hell. It's like
oh
hell
my
on earth.
God, dude.
Yeah.
And all of that is for some like for finances, for politics, for religion, whatever all of these illusions you're talking about. And it's like we're burning children, and the late Nikki Haley signs the bomb, finish them, like go get them, war, like it's just, oh. And then and people think that like Trump is going to save us, and like, oh, Trump will just get Nikki Haley on board, and then she, and he's like pro-Israel way more than Biden. Like it's going to be either way, it's going to be like World War III pretty much, and like everybody's on board with burning children. Meanwhile, you and I are like, hey, what the heck is going on? Why are we letting them do this? This is all illusions. Like, I mean, like the lies of the deceiver, these people that have they don't care. They have the psychopathic tendencies and they use the lies to put us into the mental state of thinking we need to go bomb children or thinking that like, I mean, I see people back, a couple years ago, it was like, oh, they're wearing a mask, they're crazy. But now people are like, we need to bomb kids and F you for thinking I don't, it's a bad idea. Like, you're anti Semitic if you don't like me cheering bombing of children. Like, what kind of mental traps have we put ourselves into? And how do we find I mean, I guess, what do we do?
Let's go back to frequencies and energy for a minute.
Okay.
There's an old phrase, magicians use it a lot from the Arabic language, abracadabra.
Yeah.
That means I create as I speak. And there's some truth into that because our language is the fabric of our culture. And the things we talk about will come to pass because
Mhm.
we are magicians like that. Because, you want to create a destiny, you got to start talking about it. As soon as you start talking about it, all of a sudden it develops your character. The world sees you a certain way because of your language. Next thing you know, your destiny is laid out for you by the things you say. So, what I suggest people do, don't talk about those things. Don't give them power. Don't give them energy. Don't acknowledge them. Even though they might be all around you, it's all mirrors and smoke. It's a trick. It's an illusion. These people talk about these things they talk about, and they're doing these things And that's the evil side of life.
Yeah.
And so, what we want to do, as if we're going to save the world as it is, because this planet means something. We're tired of being the stub toe of the Milky Way. You know what I mean? We want to be healthy, and I mean, right now you can look and say, well, the world is in a really bad shape. It has over 10,000 IVs pulling fluids out of the mother. She's surrounded by 60,000 satellites. Probably looks like a dialysis machine from Andromeda. Now the water is being poisoned. The people are being poisoned. That's happening on some huge, magnificent level. But on another level, heaven is not a place, it's a choice. So we have to make choices now. How are we going to talk? Is this the kind of language we want to have with our children? Nobody wants their babies to grow up in a war zone, no matter what they say. They might want other people's babies to grow up in a war zone, but not theirs. And so what we have to say is all babies are our babies. Baby bunny rabbits, baby trees, baby birds, baby humans, because we are the immune system of the
Right.
mother. We're shepherds, we're stewards, we're caregivers. In our heart of hearts, we have to remember the time when our ancestors were hunters and gatherers. If everybody goes back far enough in their own lineage, that's what they're going to find out. Is that somewhere back in the time they were sitting around a campfire, you know what I mean? And they knew how to
Right.
find food. They knew how to find these things. And they weren't fussing about different things like the nonsense. They were focused on life and how to regenerate it. And so that's what we need to do now. We need to bring back that language. That's what I'm talking about. We need to bring
Right.
back that language where we talk about the future, where we talk about love and harmony, and we may be the only ones in the room talking about it, but somebody's got to stand up for the angels. Somebody's got to stand up for mothers who are having babies. Somebody's got to stand up for the few minutes when kids laugh and smile and bring it back, bring it back. Because if we keep talking about the other side, we're going to keep creating it like a magic trick. We're going to keep pulling bunnies out of the hat if we keep talking about it. But if, on the other hand, if we talk about how to become a human being, how to become more compassionate, well, how we do that is through ceremony. See, we go into ceremony to actively behave and act in a way that we should be acting all the time. But sometimes we get distracted, we get deluded. But it's hard sometimes to talk about these things in a room when people are mocking you and telling you you don't know what you're talking about. And that's not what's really happening, because they're so delusional, they can't be reached with commonality. They can't be reached. But I mean, if you travel around the world, you'll see that you and I are talking about the same thing, you know, and that people in some places are cutting each other's heads off with machetes in Congo. And another place, people are like, you go to Hawaii, they're massaging each other, rubbing each other's feet, trying to make each other feel better. And so there are these factions of people. What I have found is that most of the time, the indigenous people, I'm going to say most of the time, the indigenous people really have a good handle on what's going on. Uh, you have to realize that water is life and children are the future. So you take care of the water, you take care of the children. Now, in ceremony, you realize that we owe most of our existence to 12 inches of topsoil, the fact that it rains. So we honor the rain, we honor the topsoil. We don't talk about corporate farming anymore. We don't talk about how they're destroying the planet, because gives it power. You know what I mean? It gives it
Right.
energy. It brings our thoughts to it. We need to have our thoughts and our hearts and our intentions on the best aspects of the characteristics of humanity, what we're capable of as poets and artists and storytellers and singers and dancers and lovers and good parents, I mean, all these kinds of things. That's who we want to put on stage. That's who we want to shine the light on. Not all of these people that are trying to tear us apart. We can't give them any more juice. Somebody's already doing that. We have to be the cheerleaders. We have to be the angels that are flying low to the ground right now. And that's what we're saying amongst the indigenous people. We have to be the voice of the forest. We have to be the voice of the trees. We have to be the voice of the rivers and the oceans. We have to be the voice of the birds that are dying. We have to be their voice. So they can't speak to all these psychopaths and sociopaths. They don't see
Right.
them. You know, they don't see
Right.
them. To them, they're just a nuisance. But to us, that's life.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm talking about when I say tribal revival and altering the global narrative.
You know, that puts me in mind of the rainbow gatherings and the rainbow family of living
Yeah,
light. How
absolutely. I used to
every
sell those folks their teepees.
That's fantastic. I bet you they're still using the same teepees
Yeah, a
that
long
you sold
time
them
ago.
back then.
Yeah, up in Montana and places. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Wow. I mean, it's gonna be in about a month, and they gather together in the forest to be the voice of the forest.
Yep.
And on the 4th of July, they pray for world peace.
Yep.
They have a moment of silence that's like 12 hours. I
That's the
mean,
way. That's what we need. We need more of that. You know.
yeah,
See, the
yeah,
problem is once we give something a name, it puts it in a category that we can displace it. You know, it can separate it. You can say, once upon a time when indigenous people didn't really have a name, we were just the people.
right,
If you look at Dene, it means the people. Hopi, the people. Muscogee, the people. I mean, the people with the buffalo, the people of the forest, the people of the water, the people of the wind. But it's always the people. And so there was no way to separate us. Now, with all these names,
mm,
they can say, "Oh well, you know, you're African, you're Chinese, you're American." They forget, and that takes precedent over the fact that we're all humans.
right.
That's the concrete beginning of all of the relationships. And
That's
so once
this.
you give it a name, you can categorize it. See, and so I'm thinking that's what part of the problem,
Hmm.
you know, is all these names. And so the Rainbow Gathering is a beautiful name, but the people there are human beings,
That's right. They're
and they're
brothers and
compassionate.
sisters. They're
And they're
family, right?
compassionate. And so
Yes,
that's a tribe.
that's
That's a
right.
nation, the Rainbow Nation.
Right.
Well, that's what Crazy Horse talked about long time ago. He called them the rainbow people. He said, someday all of the people of all the colors are going to get together under this tree of life, and the rainbow people will save the planet, save the earth. I mean, he said that, you know, hundreds of years ago. And so it's happening. And so, but if we could somehow put that into the hearts and minds of the people, that, you know, like I said, you know, that women give birth, they are the givers of life. They should have the seat of honor, all of women. I mean, we shouldn't mock women. We shouldn't degrade them. We should idolize them. They give life to the planet. On the other hand, men were considered the protectors of life. And so that should be respected. So honor and respect was the keystone of relationships between men and women. Men honored the women, women respected the men. And that lasted for thousands of years. It worked really well. But as
Right.
soon as we lost the facility to honor women, as soon as they lost the facility to respect men, and then everything started circling the drain, as George said.
I mean, the psychopathic deceivers have been attacking families and
Yeah,
our own relationship to our mothers and fathers in our own personal individual lives. And then when we grow up, we have no respect for those energies in nature, for,
right.
um, and then it's all based on then we all focus on self. And
That's
then
right.
when you're busy focusing on self, what you just like looking at, oh, I want more and I care only, hurt them. Okay. Like, and then the immorality begins. And we've had generation after generation in America of the de-evolution of our morality, like like we're the devolving of the cornerstone of those things, the respect and honor. Um, uh, I guess maybe there's a revival happening because there's a lot of parents that lived through the last couple years and the medical tyranny that was in place, and they're rethinking about schooling. They're rethinking about the childhood schedule of shots. They're not put, uh, I believe that there's going to be a lot of children that whose parents are awake now to
Mm,
the evil that they've been putting on kids for the last, couple hundred years almost seems.
mm.
And so I do have hope that there is a generation growing that isn't abused with trauma as much, isn't so focused on self as much, still has connection with mother and father, can still go to rainbow gatherings and play in the dirt for a week and, pray for world peace. Uh, do you think that there's a hope for this next generation that had to live through what we've been through, and maybe they're going to pop out the other side with like better understanding of freedom and
Well, it's a slow process, but I do see it. In my travels in Africa and Europe and South America, I see more and more people. And oddly enough, after the COVID experience, and people saw the delusional, focus on that process. But on the other hand, when people were isolated, mother flourished. Elephants were at the beach, porpoises were swimming in the canals in Italy. I mean, the sky was clear, no planes were flying. So for a few days, mother got a break. I mean, and so I was thinking, and there are some countries like Bhutan and other countries who do take time every week to stay calm and stay in a place to give mother a chance to recuperate from the difficulties and challenges that she has when we're active, as a nation, as a people of earth. And so, 8 billion people, nobody ever thought there'd be that many people on this planet. And so, and about 30% of them don't have a place to live. They don't have potable water, they're starving. And so it's really out of harmony right now. It's out of harmony. So people are starting to see that. More and more people are starting to work remotely, after the COVID thing. People are
right.
traveling around. They want to minimize smaller houses, they're moving into different kinds of situations, different kinds of self-contained communities that have their own power source, have their own waste system, have their own food growing. Those kind of things are happening all over the world right now. It's not going to happen overnight, but it seems like it when you think, for thousands of years, this exploitive kinds of behavior has been going on and accelerating. And now that people see that the end can be seen, we can now see the end of water. People are starting to, step up to the plate and say, wait a second, we can't keep doing what we're doing, or we're going to keep getting what we've been getting. We're going to have to change what we're doing. If we want to have life, we're going to have to start being compassionate. We're going to have to start being, concerned. We're going to start focusing on these things. More and more people are seeing that. It's just that it's not pressworthy. You understand that when the people tell the story of history, at some point when they say, and they lived happily ever after, the end. Well, so thousands of years go by while people are living happy. Nobody writes about it. As soon as a war breaks out, history starts being recorded again. So we only hear about the tragic moments. We don't hear about the huge amount of time where people just milked their cows, worked their farms, you know what I mean, and had happy lives. We don't hear about that. That's not a story. Yeah, they turn that into like Aesop's fables, and those things become fairy tales.
Right.
And history becomes a lie agreed upon by people who are never there, and so they can recreate history anywhere they want to, and they're starting to do that now. You know what I mean? They're wanting to erase the history of Native Americans. They want to erase the history of the African Americans. They want to erase all these things and come up with a different kind of a history to make America look even more like heroic, in their colonial, colonized uh, medium that they're working in.
Right.
It's like colonizers, a nation, an international colonization. And so, but on the other hand, there is a strong, I'm going to say 80% of the people on the planet are indigenous people. Of the mindset of indigenous basically defines itself as being from this place. And if we thought about that in a larger sense, everybody on Earth is indigenous to this planet. And so hopefully someday they'll realize that this planet is the life source, because if you thought about it the way they're treating it, we're parasites, or viruses. A definition of a virus is an entity that consumes its host into non-existence and
But
hopes to replicate.
a virus isn't alive. Like they
We are
also
the
tell us
virus. We
that,
are the
right?
virus on the planet. We're
Well, I
consuming
understand
our
what you're
host.
saying. I understand. But we like I mean, we are under the illusion that we're supposed to consume the host this way.
Mm,
When in all of history, the indigenous people have fed their lives with, in harmony with
mm.
the earth. It's like we're under this mind controlled spell to think we need to, like, oh, let's buy a plastic thing, and when we're done with it, throw it over there. Like, we don't think about where it comes from, where it goes. We're kept in this little, like, we think, oh, going to work means food.
Uh,
So, like, forgive us for, what I mean. We have been deceived. Maybe if
mm.
everybody went to Rainbow once a year, they could, like, maintain the resonance of being at home with Mother Earth, and, like, working in you in like you said before, the people that are learning to homestead and have their own power and grow their own food. That's the way, right?
Yep.
There is enough abundance for that way to be true, and for us to have 10 billion humans on the earth. I mean, like you
Right.
said, like 90% of the land is unpopulated. That most of that is arable land. Like, it can grow
Oh
food.
yeah,
And if we
absolutely.
can, so, like, I mean, the illusions that we're under keep us in this, like, state of perpetual misery. And if we do change the narrative, uh we can sing a new song, I guess, and where everybody can resonate on that new frequency. um
Absolutely.
right, right.
I agree with you. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Change the conversation.
right,
Talk about the beauty. In indigenous languages, they don't have words for like lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, plot, scheme, deceive. There's no words for those things. And the one
right,
word that everybody shies away from is that word doubt. Imagine waking up every day doubt free. You know what I mean? There's no doubt about it. It is what it is. And you're confirmed. There's no maybe. There's no try. It is or it isn't. You do it or you don't do it.
right.
And so these languages are affirmative. And I found that's true in all languages of the indigenous people. They all feel that way. It's all beautiful and faithful and compassionate and loving and kind and sustainable and regenerative. And it leads people into a beautiful future. If you, one of the things that happened on the Trail of Tears, when our people were forcibly relocated from this area around 1830, um, and they said they were so sad that they were going to have to leave their treasure. Well, when the colonizers heard that, of course, they thought treasure was like gold and money. So they started digging up the ground looking for and so, but the truth is, the treasure was all the songs that we had for all the trees and the flowers and the water here. We had all these medicine songs that we sang to all of life. And we felt like this whole place, we took the hint from the universe. Universe means one song, and so we thought the whole place was music, songs, birds are singing. And now it's been proven everybody sings. Trees have a song, water has a song. And so everybody said, well, what are we going to do with our songs? These people will ruin our songs, they'll corrupt them, they'll and so they said, well, put them in a box and we'll bury them. They said, no, they'll find them. We'll put them deep in the cave. No, they'll find it. So they kept trying to think of ways. And so finally, this old grandmother said, well, there's only one place where we can put our songs where they won't find them. Everybody says, well, where's that at? And she said, we have to come together, put our hearts together, and come up with the sweetest dream we can think of and put our songs in that dream, because these people live in a nightmare and they'll never have access to our songs. And if by chance they stumble into a sweet dream, they're welcome to the songs, because these songs are made for people who live in a sweet dream. And so nightmares are just not available. And so I think that's still true today. So what you and I are talking about is creating this sweet dream for our children and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren. We want them to live in this sweet dream where water is life, where their children, where they care about their children being the future of their lives. When, in the year 2500, and that we're going to have trees and flowers and honeybees indefinitely. I mean, they've been here for millions of years. It's hard to think that right now we're losing 120 species of plants and animals every 24 hours. There's a mass exodus going on right now that and we can't keep talking about it because it's just going to keep happening if we keep standing there pointing at the flood, saying there's a flood. We have to do something, and so put feet on our prayers. So that's so at this point in time, to alter the narrative, to change the things we talk about. Let's say we want love. See, we say, this is what we tell people in ceremony: love is the healer, and forgiveness is the medicine. What's one of the most challenging aspects of this huge avalanche that we're trying to discover which grain of sand caused it is to realize that all humans are somehow related. I mean, it's really hard for me to think that some of these horrible, nefarious people are my brothers and my sisters. You know what I mean? But they are. And so it's like, what
I
happened?
know. I know.
Mama didn't love you. You know what I mean? It's like I had a dog, but they had a pet chicken. Whoa, we were all mistreated. And so I said, wait a second, we're all in this together. So somehow, through ceremony and through rituals and rites of passage, we can bring small groups of people together, and these small groups become larger groups. And I can say this because, I've been doing these ceremonies now for many, many years, and I've watched thousands of people in Europe and Africa and I join them in ceremonies. These ceremonies, each year they get bigger. More and more people are joining them. So I see that it's growing, but I'm only seeing a little small portion. But I think that small portion is an indication of a larger portion that I have no access to, that is growing because people are changing. People in their hearts, they look at their children and they think, I don't want my children to go through this. I've got to do something. And so maybe they start by changing their job. Maybe they start by moving to the country. Maybe they start by downsizing. Maybe they start by just being a little kinder every day to somebody. You know, it starts it's got to start. I tell people, you want to be environmentally conscious and you don't know what to do, fix your leaky faucet. Change that light bulb. You know what I mean? Plant a
Right.
tomato plant. Do something. Get your hand in the soil. Walk barefooted in the woods. And if we think truth left town a long time ago, Truth lives in the forest now. So now, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, if you want to know the truth, the deeper into the forest you go, the closer to the truth you become. And it's very hard to find the truth in an urban area, because everybody has their own truth. Because now they've gotten opinions confused with truth. And if they have an opinion that they believe and stand behind, they call that their truth. But it may not be the truth at all. It's just their opinion. And so there's a very confusing time right now with the English language.
Yeah.
So we need to get back into the simplifying these things and understanding what it means. What does it mean to be a human being? Human beings have qualities that are unique to human beings. Now, we might say other animals exhibit aspects of these qualities, but they have different missions. Groundhogs, squirrels, eagles, owls, fish, wolves, bears, coyotes, they all have a mission and they all perform it perfectly. Humans are the only ones that forgot to do what it is we do best, which is shepherding, stewarding, and giving care. That's what we're best at. That's what we're supposed to be doing all the time, everywhere. We're supposed to be caregivers of the forest, caregivers of the water, caregivers of the children. We're supposed to be stewards. We're supposed to be guiding this trip. If we realized, what if everybody realized we're going 66,000 miles an hour through space, following a dwarf star, right? And nobody has a clue where we're going. It's like an incredible cosmic joyride on this big rock. All of us. You would think that would be enough motivation, realizing that we all were born through a mother and we're all going to die. You know what I mean? We're only going to be here for a little while, but we're going to be ancestors for the rest of eternity. So our legacy is going to be critical. The story of our lives. What is the story of our lives? Did we just have a horrible, nefarious Bonnie and Clyde experience? Or are we actually going to be angels on earth and help the babies and help the flowers and help the animals like shepherds, like stewards, like we're supposed to do? Because we have the gift, to do that. We can do that. Not all animals can be stewards for the rest of the planet. Not all animals can be shepherds. They do to some degree in their own niches, but we have the capacity to be global shepherds, global stewards, global caregivers. And we forgot. And so when we remembered that, the world prospered. We did beautiful things. And so we have to get back into whatever that means. I mean, you can still be a blacksmith, you can still be all these other characters you want to be if you do it under the auspices of a shepherd, a steward, and a caregiver as a larger
Right.
context. I think that's one of the things that we need to address as soon as possible.
I
Like
agree
now.
with that. I agree with that. Yeah. Like,
Mhm.
and to be a shepherd and a steward is to think about what your actions do in the world. How does what you do affect others, and
Exactly.
how do they feel? The whole do no harm, take no shit. The golden rule, right?
Right.
If it like And all cultures know that. We all like it, and like you said, if we can all recognize we're all born of a mother, we're all in the same family. That's kind of what brought me to the ideas of anarchy and voluntarism and self-ownership. Human freedom really,
Hmm.
is the recognition that we own ourselves and we are all family here together.
Right.
um, and you were saying about truth in the wilderness earlier, and that made me think about the old stories of like the Catholic stories of like the in the let's say, how do you, I guess, folk horror, where the city of the little town, where the church is safe, and if you go to the wilderness, the idea, that's where Pan lives, or like the evil of the darkness of evil lives into the woods, and it kept people there in their little communities. And like to be banished back in the old days, 1700s or whatever, in America, it's like you're kicked out of the town and you got to go fend for yourself in the wilderness. And it was like, oh, so scary. I mean, really, if truth is there, and the beauty of understanding the reality is there, instead of the deception of the church and the state,
Right.
it's funny how they made us fear
Right.
being free and being connected to the
That was
wilderness.
early propaganda.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Well, what do you think? You were talking about light and the spectrum of light before. What do you think about these solar flares that happened a month ago and that are coming back again? There are going to be more solar flares causing auroras that are seen through all 50 states. Uh, what do you think? Is that doing something to us? Is that giving us or changing things? Do you know much about?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think again, we only see 1%. See, the Webb telescope now it has an ultraviolet filter, so it can see things we can't see. But that filter takes the ultraviolet spectrum and adapts it to the optical spectrum so that we can see it. You see what I mean? That's what a filter does, because
Right.
but that lowers the vibration.
Right.
Because we can't see the higher vibrations. We can't see microwaves. We can't see gamma rays. We can't see electro.
We
We
can't
can
see
only see
the
the
the lower
optical.
ones either. We can't see the infrared or like the lower ones
Exactly.
below that. Right. Right.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
if that's given that as the boundaries that uh, we have to think. Well, what we can't see, perhaps we can still feel, because I mean. You can't see electricity, but you can sure feel it, when it hits you.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking that we see some of these northern lights, we see the flares, but what it's doing to our emotions and what it's doing to our nervous system and what it's doing to our dynamics as a living entity. If you understand this, that time is created by the amount of light that enters the illusion. Because if you're sitting in a room and 500,000 units of radiation enters your cells, you become visible in the optical range. And now you can be seen by other human beings and other animals because now you're in the optical range. But let's say that you leave this world, your body, but your actions and your emotions are still here. We still feel, so you live on in the hearts of people that cared about you. And that's just as real as if you were here, because that's all they ever had anyway. You know what I mean? You were always a figment of their imagination, because you don't really see the world the way it is. You see the world the way you are. So these people you love are uniquely perceptions of your own. You know what I mean? So, you say, I love you. What are you really saying? I have feelings of love in association with my perception of you. You know what I mean? And so, wait a second. How come this person gives you those feelings and this person doesn't? Until you finally learn that you can just be love. And so just like Rumi, close your eyes, fall in love, and stay there. You know what I mean? And then everything becomes beautiful when seen through the eyes of love. And so that's a very challenging experience to try to undertake, but definitely worth the rewards of the destination. And so that's what I try to enroll people in doing. Fall in love, and if you follow the story of Jesus, for instance, and one of the things that was reported that he had said when he was on the cross was, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Right.
I think that's still true. You know what I mean? I think that
Yeah.
was profoundly said and profound even today. So that's what we have to do. So because love is the healer, forgiveness is the medicine. And it's hard to take sometimes, but it's worth it because it leads you back into the place of love. Because forgiveness is not for the other person, forgiveness is for us. Because if you don't forgive people, then it's like taking poison and hoping somebody else dies. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So to take responsibility for your own perception and your own activities is to be human.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the challenge.
Man, for Jesus to say that as they're nailing him, I can't I just can't imagine being that kind of person. Like that's why he's a hero, really. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and the Buddha too told us
Oh
that
yeah.
love is the frequency.
Hmm.
That's how we get free from this hell realm. Like you said, we're all creating the hell realm, and if everybody can live in peace and harmony, then I mean, there is no hell realm. This place is a gift.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
Heaven
Yeah.
is a choice. So, and if you choose to be a human being, then you think, well, what does that mean? Well, that means I have to be loving, kind, gentle, respectful. I have to bring dignity to the situation. I have to be a shepherd, a steward, a caregiver. I have to be, a model of what it means to be human. There's children in the room. You know, I want
Right.
the children to understand what this means. Because look what happens when they have no role models. When Arnold Schwarzenegger is the man and Beyonce is the woman.
Jeez.
Is that the babysitters that you want for our people? You know what I mean?
Oh, what a hell.
So,
What a
so you
nightmare.
have to start thinking, wait a minute, we need to have a conversation with these children. And more so, we need to have actions associated. See, children have come into my life many, many times in terms of like taking them into the forest and teaching them about the trees and the forest and the riparian districts of the creeks and the rivers and the animals and how they all interact with each other. And they are such beautiful and eager participants. I mean, the problem we have is they don't want to leave once they come into these forests. I mean, it's like they want to stay here. So I know they're eager to know these things,
Yeah.
and but we park them in front of a computer or we park them in front of an iPhone or something like this, and then they just spend the rest of their time texting each other that's sitting right next to each other. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So they don't understand. So,
I won't
but
let that happen to my kid.
well, it's not their fault, really. It's just what's
Mhm.
been handed to them.
I get
If
it.
the menu only has two entrees, you know what I mean. Which one are you going to? And both of the entrees are less than adequate. So
Right.
yes, they will. We have to increase the menu. We have to give them more options. And I'm telling you, the children want to be in the forest. The children want to be with the animals. The children want to be, with the flowers. They want to know these things.
Right.
Once they get to be about 9 or 10 or 11, forget about it. It's going to be really hard to get them
Right.
back into there once that they've, adapted to this and
Yeah.
deformed lifestyle.
Yeah.
So we have to get them at an early age, and
I'll tell
and
you.
then it's a beautiful thing. It's I'm not pessimistic. We can still make a difference. It's just more challenging the older they get. It's a lot
Right.
easier to raise a child than it is to change an adult.
Huh. Yeah, well said. Yeah, a little anecdote of my own. My son's 4, and like I was, they came home for doing something, and my wife's like, "Oh, put him in the shower real quick," and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette," and she's like, "Well, I'll do it." And I'm like, "All right, fine, I'll do it." Like I wasn't even gonna be doing it, whatever. Okay, so I go in there. All right, I'm washing his feet and stuff, and I'm playing music. This band Sleep. It's like heavy metal, and the song it's saying, "Life giver, what is a soul? What is a life?" Like these are the words. And my son heard that, and he's asking me, "Yeah, is he talking about a soul?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And he's like, "Well," and then he's asking me, to explain, and I'm telling him it's like I tell them, you are a soul. You've always been a soul. You are eternal. You're riding now in a human suit. Like, and I explained to him, it's like someone driving a car. Like, your soul is driving, and your body's the car, and your body's the most sacred gift you have, and you must
Mm.
take care of this. And he was fully, like, before that conversation, he was like fighting me, taking his socks off. He just wanted to make jokes and stuff. But then once I started with this information, he was like eye contact, fully listening.
Oh
I've
yeah.
never heard him, like, he's never been so fully in tune with my words. And, I told him to take care of your body. He's like, yes, I will. And like, he's fully listening. And it just pleased me so much that I could just give him all these words at that moment where he's so receptive. And I'm just washing his armpits, and he's just like there fully listening. Um and I recognize that what you say, that the children do want the real information. And
Mm.
a lot of parents are like, I don't know, soul's a soul, but whatever. They don't. And like this, I have the opportunity to like feed all the information that I have into this little brain and this little soul. And he's understanding, and he's listening, and he knows that, like, I think he knows this is not his first time as a human.
Right.
And he said that he wants to be a human again, when, like, I talk about reincarnation.
Mm.
Um, so like I have high hopes for his perception of reality in the
Oh
future.
yeah.
I think that he's not going to be stuck in the trap of the
Mm.
iPad or whatever. I think maybe I can spark the light of care about, you know, within him. So, like, um, I'm just so
That's good.
proud.
Oh yeah, that's real sweet.
Yeah.
One of the things I've noticed with children is and this is a big advance, is to give them access to microscopes and telescopes.
Mm.
Let them see the finite intricacies of the smallest picture, and then the same kind of a picture. If you look through a microscope and you look through a telescope, there's a whole lot of similarities of how much space there is everywhere you look between what you consider to be the objects of illusion.
Mhm.
They said, well, these stars left the light 200 million light years ago. You go, what? You know, can you fathom that? I can't fathom that. Well, look through this microscope and look at this, look at this and tell me how the light travels from what, you know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
get the microcosm and the macrocosm. And then once you see the outer limits and the inner limits, then you can kind of get a sense of where you fit in the spectrum of illusion. It's all illusions, and so which one feels real,
Yeah.
and you say, my brother out west told me, he said that we were flesh covered skeletons made out of stardust, riding on a rock, being hurtled through space at unprecedented speeds. Basically, we're fearless. You know what I mean? I said, oh, I never thought of it that way, but I can see where you're talking about. I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah. I want to have a beer with
Flesh
that guy.
covered skeletons made out of stardust.
It's
Yeah.
true, though. It's true.
Mhm.
And, I think that, like, everybody's like, oh, we can, what if we travel the earth or travel the stars and stuff? I think we can travel the stars once we leave our earth behind. Like, our body
Mhm.
is earth. Like, we can't take it with us. It's stealing, we need to, anyway. I, I do think that, the, if we can get a new song for people, if we can all resonate in this, the idea of like love for our fellow humanity, love for the fellow life, like all of it, we all have the same life force that animates us. Like, we're all doing the mission of life, although we don't realize it. Like we were born here, we're doing actions while we're alive, just like all the little bugs and all little squirrels. They everybody has a mission, and it's acting out together.
Hmm.
Um, we're it seems as though we've been divorced from our mission, and if we can realize what we're doing, who we are, why we're here, maybe then the deception won't have any power on us, and those people that speak to non-corporeal entities in their dark ritual won't have any power because we're not
Right.
resonating in their level of
Exactly.
low frequency.
That's right. That's what
Yeah.
we're saying. Yeah.
Wow. So I guess that Jesus and the Buddha was right. Like, I mean, if Jesus could endure that type of trauma and evil actions onto his body, and still have forgiveness and love, then that that's the hero state, right? I mean,
Oh
we're
yeah.
all we're all
Look at it.
gonna.
2,000 years later, we can't stop talking about him.
It's true.
You know what I mean? That's a heck of a legacy.
Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
with
Wow.
Buddha. Same with Muhammad. I mean, they all when they were see Jesus wasn't a Christian. He was basically a teacher of love.
Right.
And so was Muhammad. You know what I mean? He wasn't a nation of Islam. He wasn't. He was just a person out there talking about loving your neighbor. And being kind and following the Creator. And
Right.
so there's a poster in California that I thought was funny, and it said, "Jesus, please save me from your followers." I thought that was funny because people picked up the mantle and went south with it. You know what I mean? Started trying to use it as a control mechanism to control certain populations. And then the
Right.
colonizers got a hold of it. It became a world dominant kind of a pressure.
Yeah, it's how.
Doctrine of discovery, from the Pope over there in Italy.
Right. It's like, and they just like, you don't believe in this God? Well, we'll kill you until you do.
That's
We
right.
torture you. Um, so it's funny. How does that? I mean, I don't know if you have an opinion on it, but how can such a message of love and care and peace and love thy neighbor, and how can that be turned into a force of oppression? Like, how does that? Like, that's some
Well,
mental
that
gymnastics, right?
is not the
That's not the force that's doing it, right?
well,
It's yeah.
did you see this movie? It's called what was that movie with Denzel Washington where he was blind and he was
Oh
trying to
yeah, I was just thinking of that while you were talking about Book of Eli, right?
yeah, and he was taking
Yeah.
that book and he wanted to have and then the guy in that village, I can't remember the actor's name really.
Gary Oldman.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
wanted that book because it would give him control over the people.
Right.
And so that's the illness. See,
Right.
not the Bible, not the words, but the
Exactly.
illness is in the person who sees the opportunity to exploit. That's the mindset of a colonizer.
Right.
That's not the mindset of an indigenous person. If you want to colonize a place, somebody has to be in charge. You know what I mean? And so then
Exactly.
and then as you colonize, you can think, well, aristocracy. You have all the peasants working for you. You know what I mean, out there and bringing you all the exploited treasures and rewards. That's a disease. That's an infection. That's a virus. That's a parasite. That's a That's a function of death. And so, but to live, to sustain, to thrive, everybody has to be together. We have to say, we're all in this together. We're all going to help each other. We're all going to, a community, a global community of people who all feel like they have their needs met and they all care about each other. I see small factions of those all over the world, but the colonizers did a really good job at enrolling people, a lot of people, especially people who have microphones and who can reach a lot of people, people who have amassed a lot of fortunes, who have the money to do these things. They don't have the power, but they do have the control. And so that's different. So the power lies still in the people. Maybe they don't realize it, but you've got, like, maybe around the world, maybe 20,000 people in charge, but 8 billion people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so
Yeah.
if the people just rose up and say, wait a second, like that old movie Network, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. You know what I mean? This is
Love
we
that
want
movie.
this world to survive. We want it to more than survive. We want it to thrive. We
Right.
want to have enough resources for our great 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 grandchildren. We don't want to kill ourselves in this next round.
Yeah.
And so, and more people are starting to think about that, but they really don't know. A lot of people, this is what I have found, is they don't know how to get out of the one and go into the next. The transition from being stuck in this colonizing world and then return to an indigenous world. They say, well, I don't want to live in the woods in a campsite. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to forage for all my food. And they say, well, it's not that drastic. You don't have to make that kind of change. You can start small. You can start saying, well, I'm going to start buying my food from local farmers. I'm going to start buying my eggs from local. You know what I mean? If you
Right.
look around, you'll find people who are offering that to you,
That's
and you
right.
just have to start looking for it, because you find whatever it is you're looking for. If you're looking for trouble, you're going to find trouble. If you're looking for joy, you're going to find joy.
Right.
And so we want people to look for ways to thrive, look for ways to have a good, safe place for your babies to grow up. Look for these things, because we always tell people that which you are seeking is also seeking you.
Hmm.
You just have to be still enough for it to find you, because otherwise it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. There's 8 billion people. And if all of these wonderful characteristics are looking for a place to land, and everybody's running around like a chicken with a head cut off, they ain't going to know which one to go with. So we have to, like, be in ceremony. We have to, like, slow down and go inside of our hearts and say, what is it that we really want? What is my life really about? Who am I really? You know what I mean? Those kinds of questions. And if you think, well, wait a second, I'm a human being and I really want a safe place for my babies. I really want to have friends. I don't want to be afraid all the time. I don't want to have fear. I want to have strength. So that if you actually think about that realistically, you'll come up with a path that'll lead you there. And it starts with your language.
Mm.
That's where it begins. You say, wait a second, who am I? Okay, now you've just set a thing into motion. Who am I? Now the search is to find out, who are you? And if you think, wait a second, I really don't want these things. I want these things. And then you say, well, how am I going to get them? And so then you start figuring it out. And then I think what most people come to is, hey, love is the answer.
That's right.
And the final
Yeah.
palace is, yeah.
Have you heard of the term agorism?
What is it?
Agorism. It's from the word agora, which means free market, basically,
Mm,
where people find alternate solutions to what we have now, where it's all voluntary interactions. There's no
mm.
coercion or force, where people enter into agreements voluntarily,
Yeah,
and
that's what
they
indigenous people do,
right.
like bartering.
Right, exactly. And,
Mhm.
we can come up with our own money if we want.
Yeah.
It could be Bitcoin or cannabis or whatever, seashells, whatever. But it's the idea that we are agreeing to working together and having and standing in that honor and respect, like
Mhm.
for each other. That is a thing that's happening.
I like.
There's a friend of ours, Derek Bros, and his another friend, John Bush, they have a thing where they created what's called freedom cells,
Mm,
call it freedomcells.org. I think you can go and find on, but basically it's where um, people that are doing the homesteading, that are doing the homeschooling, people that are doing it actions in the world, they put themselves on the map. They might not be their exact address or whatever, but that way you can find the communities around you of others, and you can work together, and it helps to to find your neighbors that are like-minded for one, but it also helps you to find strength away from the system where somebody who wants to do homeschool but they don't know anybody else who does it, and they have to go to work all the time, and maybe they can only do 1 day a week. They can do this with other parents that are working, and those this parent will do Tuesday and that parent will do Wednesday, and
mm,
everybody shares in the work, and all the kids get to have
mm,
community together,
mm,
or people that are growing food, they need to find people that'll buy it. They'll say
mm,
they put it on the Freedom Cell, like, "Hey, we're doing this, and we'll accept Bitcoin, or you can work on the farm for food, or whatever they
mm,
so choose to offer." Um, I think that is the way out. Everybody is going to be like, "Oh, we need violent revolution. Need to go kill the master." But I think really all we got to do is just turn around and go the other way. Just turn our attention away from their ideas, and we can find our own with
mm,
the community of other humans, that other love, like-minded people that love and care. We can tell who they are. If somebody's trying to steal your stuff, be like, "No, I don't want to interact with that one. But those people over there, they're good." Instead of having a ruler where, like, you must interact with me, you must vote for one of these two evil people. Like, if you if we can just say no and turn away from that, and then and there are people that are building a counter economy,
mhm,
and another alternate system to catch those that are falling out of, because, like you're saying, it's tough to go from one to the other. Like, as an anarchist, I have conversations with normies, and the first thing they say is, "Who will build the roads?" Like, the same people that build them now. Like, we can make a contract with to have them build it. We don't need the government to steal our money, whatever. But it's always that idea of, like, they don't want to jump from slavery to freedom. They think it'll hurt. Like, so it's good for people to know that there are alternatives. Like,
alternative. Yeah. Well, that's one of the mottos that a lot of our indigenous people have. They'll say, keep the faith, move towards the light, and always expect a miracle. And so that's kind of like a, a a call to arms. And moving towards the light could have a lot of different meanings, but it usually means, towards what satisfies the most people. We want, so what satisfies the most people is the kind of thing you're talking about. Not everybody. I mean, once upon a time, freedom was so prevalent, we didn't even have a word for it.
right,
It just was. We were free. I mean, you think, how do you describe this? Describe what? You know what I
right.
mean? But now we have to look for freedom. I mean, it's kind of a bizarre thought, but this is, to be free. What does that mean? To be yourself and to be unbridled. Like the old thing, it says, um, in my defense, it was a full moon and I was unattended.
In my defense, I am a predator.
Yeah,
Right?
right. Exactly.
Man, yeah. So this has been a wonderful conversation. Like, I didn't really know where we were going to go with it, and I'm glad that it turned out to be it. Like, you never disappoint me with your knowledge, and the way that you string together your words. Very impressive, and thank you
Likewise.
so much for sharing.
Thank you for inviting me onto this conversation.
Wonderful. So they can people hear what you spoke in Europe when you went to the Earth Day Summit? Is that what it was? Is there any video where we can, or audio where we can hear you speak?
Yeah, there's. I have some of these podcasts on our website, and we're
Right,
loading more up all the time. Uh huh.
right.
Earthkeepers.net.
Earthkeepers.net. Right.
You know, I have
And
pages on there that just has all the podcasts, or some of the podcasts. We don't have all of them because I keep making. There's probably about 10 that haven't been loaded up yet, but there's about 8 or 9 that have been recently. I mean, I've got podcasts from years ago. Well, they're
right.
not really. They weren't podcasts then. They were like YouTube videos.
Yeah,
Excerpts from other things.
right.
But a lot of that's on there. Because I've been talking about this for a long time.
Right. Well, God bless you, man. We need to hear it. Everybody, there's, like you said, there's new people being born every minute. We're living in the creation. So
Exactly.
if you got something to say, you're gonna have to repeat it. I think it's like more people need to hear it again and
Well,
again.
my grandfather said you have to say it 3 times. He said you have to tell people what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, and then you got to tell them what you just told them.
And I will put the earthkeepers.net, because there's the earthkeepers.
Earthkeepers.net is the main one. Well,
Right.
see, on earthkeepers.net, there is I've combined my for profit with my nonprofit,
Okay.
at least on the website.
Right.
So the website talks about our ceremonies. It talks about the earth skills and primitive skills and various things we do in the forest and these kinds of things, the language of the forest. But then there's another page on there that defers to the nonprofit.
I see.
And so I have a store where they can buy the herbal medicine, and I sell all kinds of things: flutes, rattles, teepees, drums. And then on the other page, it talks about our nonprofit educational facility. I think everybody should spend a lot of time in the forest.
I agree. Everybody should go to Rainbow this year. Like,
Uh,
I wish I could. I wish they were coming to Ohio. My transmission's busted. I need to. Anyway.
but you do have the Snake Mound.
Oh, in Ohio,
Oh, yeah.
Snake Mountain. I gotta look that up.
Check that
Okay,
out. Yeah, the
I
Miami
will.
Fox people kind of take care of it.
Okay, Miami Fox. Thanks. Thank you so much. Maybe I'll take my son and wife to there while
Yeah,
I
check it
connect.
out. Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Hmm.
So thank you so much for joining us, and everyone, please check out earthkeepers.net. And Tom Blue Wolf, you are a true light in this world, and we're so blessed to have you here for my listeners to get your words into their ears. Thank you so much again for joining us, and I hope that we can maybe in the future have another one of these. It's
Yeah, of
always
course. Thank you.
delightful to speak with you.
Well, we're brothers. That's a good thing.
Yes, yes.
Have my best to your family.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise as well. And we will catch you next time. Thank you, listeners, for listening to Wake the Dead.
For now.